You're listening to Live Wild Radio, the part-time adventure podcast.
Join us as we explore how outdoor adventures build mind, body, and spirit.
You're listening to Live Wild Radio. We're back. And if you hear a dog in the background, it's because we're dog sitting. We're going to kick off this episode with a nice little, we'll call it like maybe a thank you or maybe a
shout out.
An opportunity for you.
So as we've been talking about in past episodes, we've gotten big into do-it-yourself home gym and kettlebell training in particular. And one of our favorite suppliers of fitness equipment is Great Lakes Gear. Actually, it's our favorite, period, full stop. So Great Lakes Gear is where we get all of our fitness equipment and kettlebells. We've got a whole family of them in my living room. But yeah, it's a company that produces really nicely smooth handled kettlebells. Great prices, actually. We've shopped around. They're located in our hometown, but we decided to partner with them because we love their products. But they have a whole slew of other equipment, from maces to your plates for your barbells and anything else that
bars and trap bars and
yeah,
our favorite pull-up bar that's attached to the wall over here.
That's true.
We got from them.
So really good quality. And with Live Wild Radio, you can get a discount of 5% at checkout. So just type in Live Wild. For our American listeners, you're going to go us.greatlakesgearya, GIRYA.com. And our Canadian listeners, it's just greatlakesgearya.com. And Gearya is Russian for kettlebell.
Yeah.
All this information's in the show notes. Check it out. And, do us a favor. It helps us out. If you're looking for fitness equipment, check it out. We think we're going to be pretty happy about it.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing, too, is that if you go to our website, livewildradio.com, I've written an article on kettlebell training. There's a bunch of them, like kettlebell training for the outdoor athlete and kettlebell training for hiking. Mm-hmm. And one on does hiking build your glutes? And it does a little bit. But what really builds your glutes is a bunch of kettlebell training, like kettlebell swing. So a bunch of articles on there, to go with that. And that segues into this episode on hiking. Because in our 2+ years of putting out episodes, we've talked about backpacking mm-hmm. and camping and rock climbing and mountain biking and through hiking and all these different things. But we've never actually talked about hiking.
It's true.
Which is going for a walk in the woods where you go home at night. And so it seemed fitting because with the coronavirus, the pandemic, and, hopefully it's coming to an end soon. Like, Catherine's got 2 vaccines now.
Yeah.
I get my second dose
Thursday.
Yeah, in just a few days. So, the light's at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, theoretically, because the doctor that gave you your second dose said that people who've had 2 doses can actually just hang around together.
Yeah.
Like,
no
that they don't have to be in the same bubble or anything anymore.
I almost didn't believe her.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I've been conditioned.
Yeah, it's like I
Pavlov's dog.
Can't be around strangers.
Like, this is just gross. I'm breathing in their air. What do you mean?
So yeah, like, the end hopefully is near, but one of the things I've seen, because obviously, like, I work at an outdoor store, mm-hmm. is the huge increase in the number of people who got into hiking.
Yeah.
And that to me sort of says, okay, well, there's people who, but the conversations I'm having with people, because people are getting into, backpacking and canoeing and all that kind of stuff, but they're also getting into hiking.
Well, hiking's I think the easiest way into the outdoors to start, right? You're not worried about buying a lot of gear. If you want to just, get out of work or for whatever you're doing in the day and go for a walk in the woods, it's the most accessible. Mm-hmm. So I think it's natural that you're going to get a lot of people doing more of it, but it's also really healthy for you, and it's a bit of an escape.
Yeah, and depending on where you go, it can be great for your Instagram too. Like whenever we go out, like either climbing or hiking on the escarpment, the number of like probably Toronto people that are out walking, doing like the Instagram pictures off the edge of the cliffs. You know, so it can be good for your Instagram clout too, if you have pretty pictures, you know, that look like you go to cool places.
That's right.
But yeah, like a few different things we'll run into. Like number one, you know, what is hiking? I just define it as any walking that isn't on pavement, right? Mm-hmm. And just like rock climbing has grades, hiking has grades.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, like obviously if you're just on a dirt trail, but it's flat and there's no obstacles, you could go out in a pair of like Chuck Taylors, mm-hmm. you know, your Converse All-Stars, and you'd be fine, you know, especially if it's not muddy. Mm-hmm. But the steepness of the terrain, the, you know, obstacles, whether it's rocks, roots, you know, logs, like different, you know, whether it is the elevation change, all of those things add to the difficulty, right? And it goes right up to class 4 terrain, mm-hmm. where
I don't like.
Yes, because it's the kind of thing where you're scrambling.
Yeah,
right?
You don't want to fall because you could probably die
or hurt yourself severely. You know, where you're, and that still qualifies as hiking, mm-hmm. right? So when we, you know, go out to a local woodlot or conservation area or agreement forest for a walk, that's a hike. But when you went and hiked Mount Marcy in New York, mm-hmm. that's a hike, mm-hmm. right? Because you did it up and back in a day, so that's a day hike.
So Mount Marcy is the tallest peak in New York State at 5,000 feet and more.
534 or 5344, I think.
Yeah, and you actually only hike about 3,000 feet of it at elevation because of where you start.
Well, it's about 3,500 feet
3,500
from Marcy Lodge or Adirondack Lodge.
Yeah. So anyway, that's an example. Yeah. So so class 0 is flat terrain. Class 1 is with some obstacles. Class 2 is when you start using your hands.
No, class 3 and
4 is when you're using your hands.
Potentially.
But 4 is where you don't want to fall because you'll severely hurt yourself or die.
Yeah. And then class 5 is roped up rock climbing.
Right.
So that's one of the cool things with it is there's a lot of range for you to progress, right? Because mm-hmm. you can progress into difficulty.
Yeah.
And then you can progress in duration, like the length you go.
Of course.
Right?
And the time it takes you to do it.
Yeah. And, you know, then if you're one of those lunatics, then you can do the ultra trail running instead. And you run it instead of hike it, mm-hmm. walk it. I'm really not into that personally. You know, I sort of figure if you need to run, it's because you're being chased and it's better to stand and fight. But the big thing you'll run into with hiking is it's one of the forms of exercise, right? Because it would qualify as being like relatively steady state cardio, mm-hmm. right? Obviously, it can vary a little bit. You know, obviously, if you've got big uphill and big downhill, steep terrain, you're going to get more variations in intensity than sort of like flat and steady. But you know, it is just a sustained form of exercise. Like it's not weightlifting. But you also run into the magical part of it, which is you're exercising, right? And we all know about your steps and all that, how it's good for you. But it's also good for your mind. You know, it's relaxing. There's a lot of studies out there that spending time just in nature.
Mm-hmm. The smells, the sounds, the distractions. It's almost meditative.
Yeah.
Because the one downside is you're always looking down so you don't trip. But it's almost like a meditation in that regard. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's interesting because when you and I first met, you were almost that go, you know, kamikaze hiker, like boom, you know, like go. And I was more like the eat, pray, love, like, oh, you know, like
walk 100 meters, then smell flowers, then walk 100 meters.
Yeah, take pictures or, you know, yeah, exactly. So it's, you know, I think you've got your different personalities when you're hiking. at the end of the day, you always should, as they say, hike your own hike. And that's partly due to a fitness thing and getting it through it safely.
Yeah.
In
But
other
also,
words.
what do you want to get out of it?
Yeah.
Right?
So,
Because,
yeah.
like I do have, like, I was a competitive endurance athlete, like racing bikes for years. Right? I've done through hikes. Like, I just have like a mentality of like go long, not always fast, but steady, and eating up miles, right? It's like, and I'm thinking about, what a good workout it is.
Yeah.
And the fact is like, in the last 5 years of you and I together, I've kind of made you go faster and you've made me go slower. Like, we've kind of balanced out a little bit in the middle.
Yeah.
It's
funny.
And that's fine. Like, it's sort of that compromise so that we both enjoy going on our trips and our hikes.
Yeah. And when you go hiking, do you enjoy listening to music or doing it in complete silence?
So if I'm by myself, like I love listening to some tunes, or sometimes listen to a podcast. When I'm with people, like, I love chatting, which is convenient that we have a podcast because we can just talk. But I also the more physically demanding the terrain, like if it's just a big slog uphill, I find some like, upbeat tunes can help the time go by.
Yeah.
Because it is a workout, as much as, there's the relaxation and all that kind of stuff. When you're dragging yourself up the side of a mountain, there's no way around it. It's
but
like
when you and I have gone, and sometimes often you were ahead of me, I don't think you had your headphones or any music, did you?
Occasionally, a lot of times when I'm backpacking, well, part of it is that until recently, I didn't have any headphones that worked. Like, I've destroyed all mine. And then my phone, until I got my latest phone, couldn't get wet. Right? And I sweat like
It's true.
like a fire hydrant that's leaking on a hot summer day. So, I didn't want to destroy my phone. And I've destroyed all of my iPods over the years through sweating on them and everything. So, yeah. And the fact is like, there is the just being alone with your own thoughts thing that I enjoy too. So,
It's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, just because I walk or I hike daily, or I have, earlier this year.
You tell yourself you do, yeah.
No, I just dog sit and they get me going out for a hike or a walk. Yeah, no, I'm kind of laughing in my head here because locally when I do go hiking or walking, I've just become conditioned to listen to a podcast. But when we've gone hiking, I never did because I never had good headphones, right?
Yeah.
And I can't almost not imagine doing that without. But anyways, nevertheless, definitely going out hiking, just like exercise, which you are exercising, but just the environment, you always feel better coming out of it than you were when you came into it. So, and I quite enjoy the multi-hour, like long day hikes, that we've done.
It's an adventure.
Even even if it's local for, I don't know, 2 to 4 hours, 2 to something like that. And that's not even a big day, right? That's just a half a day. But if you're just getting back, getting out to it instead of just going for an hour, I do enjoy when we pack a lunch and take breaks. So I find that it's just a really nice escape.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I think too is that, and we find the same thing with mountain biking, is going outside and doing something, right? You're getting the same physical benefit, like from the exercise standpoint. But I don't need to be convinced to go on a hike or to go on a ride. But to put that time on the stair climber or a treadmill, like imagine doing 2 hours on a treadmill. Like, shoot me, just shoot me. You know,
Yeah,
or even an exercise bike, right? Like,
I think I'm of the mindset. I'm not a big fan of short hikes anymore. Like an hour. It depends on my mood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if I really just need to take a break and de-stress. Maybe I'm just a bit tired of where I am locally, like going to the same places, but I do quite enjoy like the weekend hikes when we go for hours.
mm-hmm. Well, I think part of what it is too, it's like, if you're going to go to the trouble of going somewhere to hike,
Mm-hmm.
then make it worth the trouble of going there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if we're even like the half-hour drive out to the escarpment,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or 45 minutes up to Hockley Valley, or
Yeah.
any of those, you know, for us
Yeah.
locally, or we've hiked down in Waterdown before, all
Yeah.
of those different areas, you know, you're driving half hour, 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So make it worth the trouble of going.
Mm-hmm.
And plus they're bigger areas. So there's more to explore.
Yeah. Sometimes I just like getting in my car and the sense of adventure.
Yeah.
Of going to the places, get my coffee and going like in the company I'm with.
It's
But,
like a mini road trip.
It is. It is. And then you go on your little adventure. But honestly, the best hikes, and I quite enjoy them with my kids, is when you don't have an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you've got the whole day wide open and you pack your lunch and you go and explore.
Yeah.
Get off trail a little bit. Try not to get lost. But that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And you find these really cool nooks and, you know, little sites of just paradise, right? Where you could just relax. And I've fallen asleep, like just off a trail with my kids.
Yeah, I don't believe that qualifies as hiking anymore, though.
But it's enjoying your.
Yeah.
See, I'm not always about the miles, as you can tell.
Well, see, and this
I'm
is
about just, you know,
the experience.
escaping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's one of the things. That's what's great. Hiking is whatever you make it into,
Yeah.
right? Because it can be, you know, just a relaxing little saunter. Like John Muir hated the word hike.
Mm-hmm.
I think like he liked to call it like a jaunt in the woods, right? Because it was all about like forgetting the physical part of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, being active is good for you, and we understand all that. But it was more that connecting to nature and the escaping and the like if you read
Slowing down.
and if you read any of his works, like obviously a guy who spends that much time covering, you know, climbing up and down mountains in the Sierra and all that kind of thing had to be in half decent shape.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we're talking somebody back in the 1800s,
Yeah.
like the late 1800s, like he's not thinking about VO2 max and, you know, how many calories he's burning, you know.
Yeah, I've never read any of his work. So for hikers out there, if you want a little bit of history and culture, I mean, obviously, he was the one that established the John Muir Trail, or was it just?
Well, that was
or was it named after him?
named after him,
in
but
recognition.
but you know, a lot of the, you know, Sierra, Yosemite, that whole area, he, you know, he fell in love with, right? It's kind of like Ansel Adams, you know, the photographer,
Yeah.
right? That was sort of one of those areas that he fell in love with.
Yeah.
And
I'm so ignorant here. John Muir, what was his contribution? Was it more from the perspective of conservation?
Yeah.
Him and what president? Was it Roosevelt?
Yep. Yep. Teddy.
How long ago was that?
Teddy was.
It felt like it was more recent. Or
like-
I'm just old.
No, because like Teddy was like in the like
40s?
early 1900s. Like it's over 100, like 100 years ago or more.
That was sooner.
No, well, because there was Theodore Roosevelt and Franklin Roosevelt, two Roosevelt presidents.
That's probably why.
Yeah, like Teddy. The cool story. So Teddy was actually the vice president, like Teddy Roosevelt, and I forget what his name is, but and I knew this, but the fellow he was the vice president for got shot in Buffalo.
Like assassinated?
Yeah, I think there was like this was back in the olden times where people had disputes and, but he got shot and he died. And a messenger, because he's the vice president.
He was hiking.
He was hiking up Mount Marcy, up the backside from,
right.
And a messenger had to run and find him and to let him know that he's now the president and he's going to come run the country. Meanwhile, he was basically out for a hike.
Yeah, so they did a lot. Because what was their contribution? Didn't we talk about this? Anyways, what was their contribution of how much they conserved?
What, like
Teddy Roosevelt and John Muir.
Well, he started the national park system.
Who, Roosevelt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So
like Yosemite and basically any national.
Yeah, like that's what got that whole system started.
Yeah.
And he was a huge conservationist and had I think at that point, like the whole Adirondacks were designated forever wild already in the U.S. So, it sort of started that whole thing rolling.
Yeah.
Right. So it's funny, like, not to get into the politics of it because, you run into the thing that everybody in history, kind of the ones that get remembered for some good stuff also were pretty terrible monsters as well. So, we're just talking about hiking here and Teddy liked hiking. So forget the rest of the stuff that he might have done. But yeah, you run into this thing where getting out there, right? Getting out and enjoying, like disconnecting, right? Because, and this is something I don't know if we've ever talked about on the podcast, but we talk about it a lot ourselves, is that the human brain was evolved to deal with real threats, right? Tigers in the grass, like stuff that could kill us, right? But we don't know how to deal with, my boss is kind of a dick, and I have a deadline, and I think one of my kids is an idiot, and, like all of those like things that, and, oh shit, how am I going to pay for this thing? Or, all of those different,
right.
Modern stresses that none of which will actually kill us. Right. But our body responds like they will.
Yeah.
Right. So people walk around with this, elevated cortisol, like stress hormones in their system all the time, and it's killing them slowly.
And I think a good indicator for that is your heart rate. If you measure your heart rate, because on your watch, if you notice that your heart rate's pretty high versus what it should be when it's resting.
Yeah.
Because what's your resting heart rate ish?
Like
right now,
55-ish.
Okay. Well, mine's 68 right now, and I'm talking. But I've seen it like when I'm stressed out, like 80s, 90s.
Doing nothing.
Doing nothing. Just sitting there all of a sudden stressed out, like first day back at work. I remember. No, I was reading my daughter's report card. It was good, but I was like, why am I getting all stressed out?
Having a panic attack.
Yeah, I was. It was really weird.
Yeah.
Which, again, for things like that, it's amazing.
Yeah. Like that, we're never disconnected. So, like put your phone on Do Not Disturb and go for a hike.
Yeah.
Even if just part of your own like mental self-care can be such a powerful thing.
It's a good ritual. Actually, I used to do it when I was experiencing anxiety years ago, work related. A lot of change. Actually, there were a lot of changes going on in my life. I used to go for hikes in the morning, and they did wonders for me. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
I went ruck marching.
Yep. Put a weighted pack on.
Yeah, it's just 35 minutes every morning, but it was, so clearly a lot of benefits. But why do you do it? Why do you love it so much?
So like, if I'm completely honest, just the regular, through the week, go walk in the woods. There's a bit of the de-stressing thing. Although I'm pretty chill, so I don't have a lot of stress in my life. I've kind of engineered it that way. But for me, a lot of it is to be in shape for when we do bigger hikes, right? If you do, particularly like when I do it, I carry a weighted pack. I try to find the hilliest local trails I can find. And that's when I definitely have the music or a podcast in.
Yeah.
And I'm just putting the time in, right? So that the legs, when we go do, we make one of our little trips for, to go on a hike. Like when we went snowshoeing in Hockley Valley, right? We were out like it was 4 hours.
Something like that.
And both you and Kirsten at the end of it were saying you were glad it was over. You were pretty tired.
Yeah.
And I wasn't tired at all.
Yeah.
Right. So it just meant not any shot on you guys, but to me, what it said is okay, what I've been doing training wise meant that I could really enjoy my hike.
And I find if you want to go from nothing, because you haven't been hiking or snowshoeing, I kind of equate them to be the same. Mm-hmm. It's just depends on the season. Right. Yep. And I actually prefer snowshoeing these days. I don't know why. Anyway, but, when you go, I find that if you just hike regularly, doesn't have to be vigorously, but consistently for about a month before you do that 4-hour hike, maybe 3. Mm-hmm. Of course, just breaks, some food, whatever, some snacks. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much. So my point is, it doesn't take much to get into shape. And I know we're jumping right into fitness, but it's a thing, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're starting off, I think we recommend don't go for any more than an hour, max. And maybe 35 minutes, because you want to be consistent, right, and frequent in your training, if that's what you're looking to do. So say you just want to be in really good shape, because it takes time, and of course it's getting good boots, hiking boots. We'll talk about that. I take hiking poles. I guess we're jumping into what to take.
Yeah.
So let's just do it.
Yeah. So we'll start with footwear. Mm-hmm. Right, because that's sort of your number one thing.
Yeah.
Depending on the time of year and your ankle health, we'll call it, ankle, knee, hip health, you could go either a shoe or a boot, right? Because we're not talking loaded backpacking where you've got maybe 30, 40 pounds extra on your back.
Yeah, but you should have about 20. We'll talk about why later.
So it's one of those things where I will tend to just wear a hiking shoe a lot of the time. And somebody who needs a bit more ankle support than an above the ankle hiking boot that gives you a little bit more support. And what makes a hiking shoe, from the ground up, is first an aggressive tread. So if you think about your street shoes, running shoes, Converse All-Stars, anything you look at the bottom, there's no tread, right? You want a shoe or boot. When you look at the bottom, you can see how it bites in, right? It's chunky. There's different tread patterns and, different rubber compounds. But things like the Merrell Moab, which is a really popular hiking shoe, the Salomon X Ultras, any of the Obos, whether it's
They're
the Bridgers
amazing.
or the Sawtooth. That's what Catherine and I both wear.
Oh my God.
They're
hiking
fabulous.
boots and shoes. Yeah.
They've done a great job of fitting the foot. It's snug, snug in the heel, and roomy in the toes.
Yeah.
So
they're
they're
just so comfortable,
Yeah.
the shoes.
Another one that's really good are the Keen shoes. I've worn those for years. For people who need a little bit wider in the forefoot.
Yeah.
So the thing is, you want a good amount of grip on the bottom, a chunky tread, a reasonable amount of cushion, then support. So what they'll do, because obviously, with any shoe, you've seen the foam, usually EVA foam. That'll be the cushion, the shock absorption. But then with hiking shoes, they'll often mold a little bit of a shank or a plate within that foam to give you more torsional rigidity and underfoot protection, and that can get simple as just a little plate to sort of these wraparound skeleton things with different shoes. The key is going to be try a few different on until you find what fits your foot
and
well.
keep in mind, if you wear orthotics, put them in, try them when you do, and wear your hiking socks as well, because what you always want to do when you get fitted is make sure there's lots of room around your toes, because when you hike for several hours, or especially if you're pushing yourself, your
or
feet
it's
will
hot
swell.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, and you want to test it by going up and down stairs, because you're trying to make sure your toes aren't hitting the tip of the boot. Otherwise, you'll get, bruised toenails, and your toenails will fall off, and that's happened to me.
Yeah. And so when you want to kind of mimic, like when you're trying on shoes, you want to have like about a pinky's width of space at the tip of your toes. Right. So that, because, going downhill, your foot can move a tiny bit in the shoe. You just don't want your toes hitting the end of the shoe. Then, from a sock standpoint, like a padded hiking sock, the height you go with will just be dependent on the height of your footwear. So you can get, ankle high ones if you're just wearing shoes, or you can get, crew if you're in boots. But a hiking sock, usually made from merino wool, they'll be padded around the toes and under the bottom of your foot and under your heel. And then how thick they are will just be dependent on the time of year, right? So I'll wear light most of the year, and then I'll have heavier ones for wintertime.
And so we like them because they wick away the sweat.
Yeah.
And they're quite durable, that they have a lifetime warranty, right?
Well, the Darn Tough brand.
Oh, right. The Darn Tough.
Yes, those are the best socks in the world.
Yeah, they're about $30 Canadian. They're expensive, but they're worth it.
Yeah.
Because they're guaranteed for life. So
you
eventually you will wear
you,
through them, and you'll just get a new pair.
Yeah. And the basically, we're not sponsored by Darn Tough, although if they want to, we only want to be sponsored. We only want to, from a commercial standpoint, only want to deal with products that we actually.
Yeah, but we're telling you what we love,
that we enjoy or we believe in, and Darn Tough socks. Other than socks that I've been given for free, because working in the biz,
sure,
you get some swag every now and again. The only socks I wear, or more importantly, the only socks I'll spend money on.
You're cheap.
Yeah. Are Darn Tough.
Yeah. No, they're good.
So anybody wants to give me free socks, I'll wear them until they're dead. But the only ones I'll actually spend my own money on are Darn Tough.
Yeah.
They're just fabulous socks.
And by the way, when you're trying on the hiking boots in the store, they should feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So none of this bullshit about
breaking them in.
Yeah. No. Because when I put those oboes on, those
the Ridgers, or the new ones.
Would they qualify as hiking shoes too?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're fucking comfortable.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I put them on. I'm like, are you kidding me? These are so nice.
Yeah. Because you've got the Bridger hiking boot too.
Yeah. They're just beautiful. Just go try oboes.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. We're both big fans.
Oh my God. I had never heard of them. I don't even think, are they a big name? Are they fairly new?
In the shoe world, yeah.
No. Down. Oh. Down. Go. I want to snuggle. I want to snuggle too. But not on my couch.
Yep.
Because you're going to wreck it.
So get back in your bed, dog. Good dog.
It's hard.
That's Hazel. The puppy wants to come and cuddle while we're recording podcasts. Oh, well. So a couple of other tips when you're trying on shoes. Get them from a good outdoor store. Unless you already know what you need and you can mail order, try shoes on purpose.
Yeah.
Not on purpose, in person. And then if you can, try them on towards the end of the day. Because your feet swell throughout the day. So if you try them on first thing in the morning, you're going to run into the thing where they might be okay. Mm-hmm. But then as your feet swell throughout the day, they actually get too tight. So it's better to make sure that you've got the built-in room in the shoes for your feet in their swollen state, rather than have them be like some, Vienna sausages crammed in a can. Can be terribly unpleasant.
Yeah, and then just keep in mind that when you're hiking, in terms of foot health, you should always have with you a first aid kit, right? And in that first aid kit, worthwhile having foot powder. You want to have dry feet. This is why the merino wool socks are also really good. You also, when you feel a burning sensation in your foot, you're starting to get a blister. You need to stop. You need to correct that. You need to see if you're tying your shoelaces tight enough. And there's ways you can tie your shoelaces to make sure that, your foot doesn't move around. You can check that out online, or maybe we'll put that in the show notes. But at the end of the day, you want to address the situation. Sometimes I carry along with me lambskin. Just put an extra padding.
Oh, like the moleskin.
Moleskin, whatever.
Yeah.
But often too, it's your feet rubbing against the shoe, right? So, but if you wear 2 pairs of socks, like a liner sock, that'll definitely work.
Yeah.
So that's usually a tight sock, and then you wear your other sock on top.
Yeah, like a really thin sock. Like think of it as foot spandex with your regular, like your hiking sock over top.
And that'll avoid you getting blisters. So those are some pretty key things to make your hiking more, experience more, your trip more enjoyable. And allow you to go further. So the other thing, though, that I really find beneficial when I first started hiking, it was partly because I had knee problems, were hiking poles. Mm-hmm. But I also want to just say, because a lot of people attach the stigma of you're old, you need hiking poles, or I don't need that, right? But truth be told, it actually makes you hike faster.
Yep.
It's more of a workout. Now you start to get your upper body engaged. So it's a better fitness tool. It's more stable. Now you've got, 4 legs essentially. So you can bebop it, especially like in the Adirondacks where there's rocks and people are trying to navigate and teeter-totter between rocks. You're just going boop, 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 like a little bunny, because you can go.
Yeah.
So when it's raining, definitely it's very helpful, especially, and most people will be thankful that they brought them when they're going up mountains and coming down them. It's usually when you're coming down them that you need that, because coming down a mountain in particular is harder than going up.
Yeah, going up's just cardio, right? It's just like stairs that never end. But coming down is impact, because you have to put the brakes on every step.
And a lot of people don't have that strength. And even if you don't have knee problems, your knees will hurt.
Yeah.
So having something brace, cut the impact. Mm-hmm. Or now I also found that hiking with poles also help alleviated any back pain I would have had. Mm-hmm. So that's very helpful as well. So there's a lot of benefits. And heck, you don't even have to use them to begin with. You can use them when you need them. So you can always just, shorten them down and put them in your bag. But, and one last thing is, and we're quite multifunctional, because when you do go on hiking trips, you have to think about safety. And we have an article called The 10 Essentials, which, think about it, if you ever got lost in the woods, and that's when the big accidents you hear about the search and rescues happen, is typically when somebody goes hiking. They expect that they'll be back, right? So hiking poles, if you have a tarp, you should have a tarp in your kit when you go hiking, just in case, for rain, shelter, whatever. But you can make a tent with hiking poles and a tarp, right? You can just set it up in such a way. And I've done that before when it's raining. So it's quite handy. But just to carry on that note, 10 essentials. Let me see if I can remember them. So I love my headlamp. That's another biggie, because how often do we go hiking and we wonder if, or we think we're going to be back before
dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and one of the most common causes of search and rescue call outs is people getting stuck in the dark. Right.
Yeah.
Whereas if they just had a bloody headlamp with them, they would have been, like, what happens is like they're not injured or anything. They're not lost. Yeah. It just got dark. Right. Yeah. And luckily, in some cases of day hikes, you're not that far away. So, somebody, their cell phone works, they make a call, they're able to be found. And then some rangers had to walk in with headlamps.
Oh, it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
You feel like an idiot.
But
it's such an oversight if you don't have it. And even when we've gone mountain biking or hiking, how many times we're like, oh, I'm glad we bought our you don't think you're going to come after dark, right? But you do.
Although we do enough times that now we should just expect it.
Yeah. It's just, it just is.
Yeah.
So hiking poles, headlamp, tarp. Let's talk about food. I like peanut butter, protein.
Yeah.
I like chocolate. It gives you fuel.
Trail mix. Cliff bars.
Yeah. Water. So filtration. So ways to clean water, you want redundancy. So I like to bring water tablets and a filter.
Yeah. And when we're talking about the filter, because you haven't seen this one yet, but I would highly recommend in everybody's hiking kit having a Platypus Quick Draw. It's a new filter out by Platypus. They do like the gravity filters that everybody loves. But it works like the Sawyer, which we used for years. Only it's 3 liters a minute flow rate, which is even faster than our Be Free.
What was ours?
The Sawyer?
The Be Free.
The Be Free's 2 liters.
Okay.
The Sawyer was 1 liter. Right? But the Be Free that we use from Catadyne won't fit on normal bottles.
And this will.
This will fit on normal bottles, and it uses a squeeze bag. Like It's got a thread inside and outside.
Okay.
So, and these cool caps that close it off. In like Canadian, I think they're like $56 for the filter in a bag.
Okay.
And so all you do is fill either like a 2 liter pop bottle, like if that's all you had with you, or a plastic water bottle with, water from a stream, thread it on, and now squeeze it. And 3 liters a minute, like my 2 1.5 liter bottles would be full in a minute.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Especially when you want to be on the go and yeah.
And with these filters, and this is whether you use the Catadyne Be Free, which is what Catherine and I currently use, or the new Platypus or the Sawyer, you can obviously fill, the bag or bottle with, unprocessed water from a stream or a lake, thread the filter on, and either squeeze it in your bottles or squeeze it right into your mouth.
Yeah.
It takes out bacteria and parasites.
In which case, what you need to be thinking about in most cases is that people pee in the water, right? Or animals pee in the water, especially beavers. You will get sick.
Well, it's shit in the water more than pee, but
okay.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can boil your water, but you can understand the logistics. Not that you can't do it, you can do it, but obviously you're not going to drink it right away, right? Unless you're making coffee.
You got to cool it down.
Yeah. So obviously, some people might wonder, wow, I have to take all this shit. But here's the thing. I've seen people hiking and take bottles of water because they didn't realize at the very least you can purify water with a tablet.
Yeah, and they're walking along carrying like a gallon.
Oh, yeah. Like I've seen them hike with like 10 pounds of water. I mean, what are you doing, And so there is definitely an advantage to do that. So we talked about water, fire.
Yep.
Huge, huge, huge. So just think about it. It's dark. You're getting cold. Okay, you've got your tarp. That's great. One of the first things I would do is get a fire going because you got to search for things to get that going. So you need, I like my flint rod. I like my fire starter. I call it cheating. So fire starter for me is cotton balls and Vaseline.
Yep.
And I usually have that in my emergency kit. Very easy to start a fire with that, with just a spark. And that'll last for quite a bit. And then you obviously scavenge whatever you can in the woods. But once you've got that going, now you've got heat, right? A source of heat.
You got light.
You've got a way to cook, right? If you catch something or you need to cook, you've got whatever. But the key thing is that you've got light. You've got a way to let people know, SOS or whatever.
Yep.
Don't want to burn the forest down, but so you've got heat and you've got light. Then you've got your tarp. Well, navigation's always important.
Yep.
So map. Half the time, people will go on a trail and not know what's to come and where they're going or how to get. They don't even know where they are.
Yeah.
Just don't know where they are. So worthwhile, a couple of things on this point. Number one, let people know where you're going and when you expect to be back. Have a buddy system, especially if you're going on your own. Okay. Really important. Stay on trail, right? If you have to get off trail, you want to explore something, go to the bathroom, make sure the heck you know what you're doing and looking and look around.
And one of the simplest things is like mark your way, either with like piles of rocks, piles of sticks. You could also carry some marking tape with you. You know, it's like fluorescent tape that you just tie around trees as you go. So you can always get back. Like essentially you make yourself a little trail to get back to the main trail.
Yeah.
You know, there's more than one way to do it.
I mean, there's numerous stories of people going off trail and then unfortunate stories on the backpacking trips in the Adirondacks where people, the Appalachian Trail.
It's happened in the Adirondacks too. So
as well. Yeah. People die, right? Because they've gotten off trail and they get disoriented. It's very easy to get disoriented. It's important that when you're on a trail to look where you're going, but look back every now and then. And establish landmarks. Like take note of them, rather because I know when you hike or when I hike, I'm always looking down
so
to not trip. But look up, take the time, get to know, make sense, and that's why having your map's important.
And a compass to go with it.
A compass, know how to use a compass. I still don't know how to use it,
even though you took one of my classes.
Yeah, well, you got to practice it, right?
Yeah.
I have a Garmin InReach Explorer. Right, which is a satellite
communicator and GPS.
Right, so that's pretty good.
And you have a very expensive Garmin watch with maps on it,
which actually was more reliable than my InReach Explorer.
Well, just because the maps, the reliability was good. It's just you have better maps on your watch than your
remember that
handheld GPS.
We were looking for our snow shelter at 10 p.m. Yeah, that was funny.
And then of course, your cell phone.
And your cell phone and batteries, like have an extra battery. I always have, I mean, these are a lot of things to take with you. I mean, at the end of the day,
you don't need all of them.
You don't need all of them.
You could have a map and compass in your cell phone.
Yeah.
Right. So it's these are different options that you have available. So it just basically, if you're using your phone, bring a little brick battery to keep it charged. Turn off everything you don't need when you're out there, so you get longer battery life.
Yeah.
And make sure that you've downloaded whatever map. So whether you're using the All Trails app or a Venza PDF Maps or whatever Gaia GPS app, whatever app you're using, you've downloaded the maps for offline use. So if you're out of cell signal, you actually have the maps saved in your phone.
So I was on a small hike in an urban community in where we live with a friend before work. We got lost. we eventually got out, but my boss was laughing her ass off. She's like, "Oh my God." I'm like, I'm going to be late for the meeting. I'm lost. I'm just hitching a ride. And we're waiting for an Uber to go back to our car. She's like, "Oh my God." This is so typical me. And it was funny because I have my Garmin watch. And I wasn't paying attention to it. This is a conservation. We just got off trail.
You were in a city like a park.
I know.
A forest in a city neighborhood.
We were, and it was the Huron Natural Park, whatever.
It's even got signs and stuff in it.
Yeah, but we went off trail. We were gabbing, and we wound up down behind some industrial area and then way far away from our cart. But the point is that we weren't paying attention. We were talking too much, right? So it happens to the best of us. I can't remember if I had my watch then or after, or that was the excuse anyway. But it happens. So when you do go out for realsy, you are in a park and you want to get to work on time, there you go. Okay, so we talked about navigation. We talked about first aid. We didn't talk about first aid. So key things to have in your first aid, any medication that you might need, really important. Remember here, we're not trying to do a surgery on somebody. We're just trying to stop the bleeding if there's anything or have bandanas. Just to help with, say, if somebody broke an elbow or sprained an ankle, whatever. just to get out of there. So I think the key things, I do bring things for ticks. Like I have a little tick keychain. I have Band-Aids. I have my knife, right?
But that's not part of your first aid kit, although that is one of the 10 essentials.
Yeah, I mean like my switchblade or my knife, right? And then the knife, I'll just jump here.
RCMP, she said switchblade. She meant Swiss Army knife. We understand that switchblades are illegal.
Okay.
In Canada.
All right. Yes.
Swiss
Army knife. That's what it is. All right. So knife's important. I have, what kind of a knife is it? The orange one? The orange handle?
Yamura?
Yeah. It's like a 6-inch blade.
5, but
5. It's incredibly.
But thank you for giving me that extra inch.
It gives you the ability, believe it or not, to help you split wood. No, I wouldn't bring a saw on this kind.
Not on a day hike, no.
Not on a day hike, but it's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
It's helpful for a variety of things, right? Good to have around. So knife, extra batteries. I always bring batteries, like for your headlamp, right? That's just the extra batteries for that. Tylenol, Advil. Like what else would you put in your first aid kit?
So obviously your regular bandages, anything to deal with blisters.
Yes.
I've got a tube of polysporin.
Yes.
Advil, Imodium, Benadryl. So allergies, shitting your pants, and pain.
Yeah.
Those I always have.
Definitely the blisters. That's usually what happens.
Yeah.
Duct tape.
Yeah. Duct tape. Basically duct tape and gauze.
I use that before I use Bandit.
The moleskin?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's one of the little tricks that we didn't get to when we're talking about blisters. But if you start to feel a hot spot developing before it becomes a blister, take your shoes and socks off and just take a piece of duct tape and put over that spot. Now it's rubbing on the duct tape, not on your skin, and you won't get a blister.
It's magic.
Right?
It really is.
And that it's simple and it stays on, right? Mm-hmm. Get the Gorilla brand duct tape. I find like the shitty no-name stuff doesn't work as well.
It works for me.
You know.
And I usually just, you know what I do is I just wrap it around my knife, the sheath of my knife.
Yep.
A couple wraps along with electrical tape too.
Yep.
Because electrical tape will work. Anyway, rather than carrying a whole thing of duct tape.
Oh yeah,
right?
you don't carry the whole thing.
No.
Or you can wrap it around your hiking poles.
Yeah, that works too.
You know. Or you can even get like pre-cut little squares or little strips, and then you can just keep that in your first aid kit as well.
Simple.
Yeah. But just different options for people. And then obviously because Catherine got to like knives and tools, that's one of your 10 essentials as well. Warm clothing.
Oh, important. Super important. Yeah, often people so the most dangerous time, PSA announcement, important to know the most dangerous time to go hiking is in the fall because people tend to, hot sunny weather, shorts and t-shirts, and all of a sudden a rainstorm comes in, but you're close to zero, right? The weather just changed, especially in the mountains. People will die in that kind of weather. It's so because you're wet and you're ill prepared, right? And then you're stuck in the mountains, you're screwed. Yeah. So really important to pay attention to the weather. Bring a windbreaker. Bring a puffy.
Yeah.
The
little beanie cap and a pair of light gloves. Because when your hands are cold, you lose dexterity. So being able to do anything. And you lose a lot of heat through your head. So keeping your head warm makes a big difference as well. Like a buff. Because they can be a beanie toque or a neck warmer or 1,000 things. Yeah. It's always important to bring, layers of clothes. And I think, because here's the thing, too. You might not be lost on the trail. You may have gotten injured. Mm-hmm. And you can't get out. Yeah, because all of a sudden your pace, maybe you can keep moving, right? Using your poles as crutches, or canes. Mm-hmm. But now instead of going 4 kilometers an hour, you're lucky if you can do 1 kilometer an hour. Yeah. So now that you may have to spend the night. That 5K hike out, which was going to take just over an hour, now you can't get out before it's dark, right? So we're not always talking like life-threatening, broken bone sticking through the skin kind of, like those are things that you call for help, but you may run into that, and this is why always having your 10 essentials with you, because you could, even in the summertime where it's, it's pretty warm out, it's clear and sunny, but you get like one of those, and we've been getting hit with them regularly, these torrential thunderstorms. And now all of a sudden it's in the teens, or in the 50s for our American friends, I think. I'm doing the math in my head. And now what you run into is you're soaked.
Yeah.
And it's just chilly, right?
And then it gets dark.
And then maybe you're tired. And when you're tired, your body doesn't produce energy or heat as well.
Yeah.
Right? So these are all like avoidable if you just had a little bit of stuff with you. And this is why we sort of, have talked about the 10 essentials on a bunch of different episodes, and we've done articles about it, because they make life-threatening things into unplanned camping trips.
Have you ever had an unplanned camping trip?
A number of them over the years.
Yeah.
Or ones that I didn't end up camping for the night. But I was, you plan to be out before dark and you finally get out at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So, there's been...
That happens a lot. Like we had a really good episode with Scott Van Leer, ADK Ranger. I don't know if he's still working because I know he was close to retirement. So he may have retired now, but he's from the Adirondacks. And it's so common. People are out on a hike. It's people out on a hike, which is when you have the search and rescue coming out.
Yeah, it's very rarely, like it occasionally could happen for backpackers, right? But backpackers are already equipped. You have all your camping gear, you have food, you have a stove, you have a tent, you have, you got some clothes, like, so when you're backpacking, you're carrying a mega version of your 10 essentials.
So let's just say you should be carrying a day pack.
Mm-hmm.
I never go hiking without a backpack.
Yeah.
Ever.
And something...
Because I usually have snacks and water.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So something in the, we'll say like 16 to 30 liter range, right? 30 is a bit on the big side, but, maybe if you're with your family, so you're carrying stuff for other people as well.
What's my green pack? Is that 16?
I think it's about 20.
Yeah, that's a fair size.
Yeah. You're not going to go backpacking with it, but
Yeah.
it's enough to carry everything you need.
Yeah.
Whether for going on a winter hike or a summer hike. And, that's sort of the big thing with it, is that a little bit of preparation means that, the unexpected doesn't become life-threatening.
Yeah. Yeah. Because nobody ever plans for an emergency to happen.
Yeah.
So you should always just get into the habit of, when you go hiking, having some key essentials. And if I had to strip it down a little bit, I wouldn't take a filter. I would just take water tablets.
Yeah, you can get, we talked about the filter, but
yeah.
We always have chlorine dioxide tablets, where one tablet will disinfect 1 liter of water.
Yeah, it's easy, right?
And we carry
I would take
50 of them.
electrolytes depending on the time of the year. If
If it's hot out.
You want to make sure you're getting enough, because otherwise, if you're sweaty, you start to lose key electrolytes in your body.
Yeah,
You sweat it out. Do we get them all?
we got the 10.
Did we?
We'll put links in the show notes to our 10 essentials articles, where I get in more in depth about these things. So and give ideas, and I've got like whole breakdowns of first aid kits and.
Yeah, so we talked about things to take, right? Like your emergency kit, your hiking boots, obviously, your poles.
A quick thing on how to dress.
Yeah.
Athletic clothing, right? That is like quick dry materials that wick moisture away from your skin, including your underwear.
Synthetic
or merino wool. When you're dealing with colder temperatures, dress in layers. One of the things we didn't put in our 10 essentials was sun protection. So sunscreen, a hat, long sleeves, SPF protection. So sunglasses, all of that sort of go in that. But what you'll run into is you are doing a athletic thing. So you want clothing that handles like varying temperatures, sweating, cotton is horrible.
Cotton kills.
Yeah, like when it's cold out, because when it gets wet, it stays wet. In the heat of summer, it's not going to kill you. It's just miserable. Like you're wearing a sopping towel for a T-shirt. So that's where having clothing, like whether it's Under Armour or Icebreaker or...
just synthetic.
Yeah.
Doesn't even have to be that.
No, but that stuff just works better.
Yeah.
And think about chafing, right? So... I'm a big fan of like the boxer brief underwear, because I've got, for me every day is Thick Thigh Thursday. So I wear the Under Armour boxer briefs that kind of like bicycle shorts. So then my legs don't rub together. So you don't end up with chafing on the inside of your thighs.
Yeah.
Those are kinds of things that people don't think about till you start putting some time.
Well, that's when you're backpacking in particular, when you're through hiking, right?
No, like I've
in a day?
I've had like, because I didn't wear the right stuff, I've had like my inner thighs like chafed raw. Okay. Because it's hot and sweaty out.
Yeah. Got it.
So.
Never happened to me, but okay. It does, yeah.
Yeah. It's like basically you're walking like a cowboy, like they got off a horse, all wide because you don't want your legs to touch each other because it hurts. Your mileage may vary, but, then, basically depending on the temperatures is dressing in layers. So then, wicking against the skin, insulating layers like fleece, puffies, that kind of thing, and then a shell to protect from the wind and the rain on the outside. And mix and match your layers as your workload or your effort level.
Yeah, let's talk about nutrition, because it was on a backpacking trip that I was for some reason, I don't think I was on keto, but I was eating protein, and I just wasn't going anywhere. I was just losing energy. And we had been backpacking all day. And it was a slog of a hill going up the back of Marcy or something like that in the Adirondacks. And then you gave me some Skittles. And I swore it was like jet fuel.
Yeah, because it's carbohydrate that gets in your system quickly.
Yeah. Right. But it makes a difference. So if you need an excuse to when you can have your candy...
is in the middle of a hike.
Yeah. It's perfect. So always, it is great bribery material with kids.
Like the big thing comes in is that when you're working hard, your body will absorb and convert carbs to energy the quickest, right? And that could be like a bagel, that can be Skittles, that could be energy bars, that could be, and so it's one of those things, a balance mix. So if you eat like a bagel with peanut butter, your body will absorb it a little slower.
Yeah.
So then you end up with like sort of more diesel fuel. It'll last a little longer. It won't be sort of a spike and then drop.
Yeah.
Where you have to keep putting, carbs in your system. Trail mix, where you've got kind of a mix of like nuts and raisins and, dried fruit and all that kind of stuff.
So the idea of having like a well-balanced meal, like with salad and fruit, like fuck that. And just bring your carbs and your nuts.
And you want calorically dense.
Yeah, you need stuff to get you through the hike if it's a long hike.
Yeah. Because it's sort of the opposite of good nutrition out in the real world. You want stuff that instead of like a lot of food for few calories, you want a little bit of food that has a lot of calories.
Right.
And it really is like when you're out for a hike. And this is one of the things, like I know a lot of people who love, like half of their reason for big hikes
the food
is just then they can eat more, right? Like when
I believe it.
When you burn a ton of calories, right?
That's how I justified my Reese's Pieces today.
Yeah.
I wasn't hiking, but I was biking.
So it's those kinds of things where whatever sort of gets you excited about it,
Yeah.
you know, and obviously you can overdo that, and you know, if the pants are getting tighter and the scale's going up, then you haven't figured out the formula yet.
Yeah.
But it's the thing. It takes a little bit of experimentation. But
Just consider that your nutrition when you're doing these longer day hikes, especially like when I did Mount Marcy, it was interesting. It was part of my rediscovery tour. I just came out of a marriage of many years, and this was my Eat, Pray, Love long week trip. And I wanted to hike up this mountain to break me down and build me up again. It didn't exactly break me down, but
well, it seemed to break you down pretty well.
actually it did, but not emotionally the way I wanted it to.
No, it physically destroyed
it did.
you.
Yeah, it did. Anyway, it was really interesting because it was the first time that I had ever had to eat. Like I had never had a dry meal, like a dehydrated meal, right? So it was the first time that I actually used nutrition to my advantage to fuel what I was going to do. And you really do. So when you do these longer, and that was so it was, shit, I should know
It's 20K.
this. I was
like
going to say how
10.
many.
Well, it's about round trip of 25K.
I did the whole thing.
Yeah, like.
So it's 25K. It was 3,500 feet there and back, right? It was 13 hours for me. I was out of shape. I was, I don't know, 220 pounds, 30 pounds. I was pretty heavy.
Yeah.
I had serious issues with my knees. I was not in shape.
Yeah, because you're like 50 pounds lighter now.
Yeah. I'd be curious to do it all over again. That would be fun.
No, we bebop our way up.
Although my knees,
Well, if you did it as the day hike
I'd be fine.
versus, because you've done that with
Because
a
I
full
also-
backpack on now.
That's true. and I have my knee braces, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, if you're going to do a long hike or even a short hike and you just want to feel good, consider your nutrition. You don't.
Yeah.
It's not salads. Just saying.
And then finally, where to find good hikes. The idea of a couple resources. So first off, both as a website and an app for your phone, All Trails is a great hiking app. I love to sort of surf around All Trails because when you zoom in on the maps, you see the trails in an area.
Yeah.
Like basically you zoom in enough and all of a sudden you can see everything because it's all like these dashed lines are the hiking trails. But you can also then click on and see other people's hikes that they've done.
Yeah.
And you could actually download and save those.
Yes.
Because if you go to All Trails and look up Live Wild Radio, you can find a bunch of stuff that we suggest that we've done.
Yeah. For anybody in the States or even from Canada who are on the eastern side, want to go to Adirondacks, we have some great trails that we've posted there. But you can also, through All Trails, record your own hike.
Yeah, and upload
which is
it.
cool. And you can always share it with people. It's got really good visuals.
Um,
I really like the elevation that it tracks.
Yeah.
I think that's very helpful. And it shows exactly where on the map it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very helpful tool from a navigation perspective.
So All Trails is great for both hiking and then finding hikes. Then one of the things you'll run into that I find quite useful is just looking at Google Maps, right? And because Google Maps will, like when you zoom in, don't have to zoom into a street view or anything, but you zoom in and the darker green areas are your parks, conservation areas. And then what I'll do is like see the name of that park and then I'll look it up, right? And see what they got. And then maybe even look at it on All Trails, right? Because you can see stuff around. That's how I found a lot of stuff here in Ontario, stuff in the States. Because before we go anywhere, I'm always like surfing around maps of different types just to sort of get an idea of what maybe.
So how you found the Black Forest Trail?
No. Excuse me. Catherine's yawning. It's making me yawn.
I haven't been yawning.
Well, you just did.
I'm not yawning.
Okay, you're not yawning.
My eyes are just going haywire.
You need some Benadryl.
No, it's the dog.
I know.
I don't need Benadryl. I need to wash up my eyes.
Oh, okay, because Benadryl's a antihistamine. So what I did was look up hikes in Pennsylvania, right? And that gave me the Mid-Atlantic Hikes website, and then they just had like hundreds of hikes in Pennsylvania on that website, and then I clicked and had maps, and that's where I got that one from.
That was an amazing trip.
Yeah.
No, that was a through hike, but you can definitely go hiking there.
Yeah.
Black Forest Trail.
Yeah. Down near Slate Run, Pennsylvania. So then looking at any, regional maps, you can, and one of the other things, if you happen to have an outdoor store in your area, whether it's an REI or a sale or a mech or a whatever you happen to have, or an independent, go in and talk to the people, right? People that work in these stores.
They're nerds.
Yeah, we're nerds about this stuff. So I can, tell you a ton of places to hike here in Ontario. I can tell you places to hike in New York. I can tell you places to hike in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, New Hampshire, Utah, Nevada.
And keep in mind that a lot of the backpacking through hike trails is when it takes, multiple days to backpack. So in Ontario, for example, there's the Bruce Trail. You can section hike.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people do that. Actually, they have to because it's illegal to camp. Although some people stealth camp on the Bruce Trail. Sorry, Bruce Trail Association. But
wink.
Yeah. Anyways, they day hike. They call that section hiking, right?
Yeah, because you just do a section at a time.
Yeah, although sometimes people might sleep over, whatever. But you can do it. People typically do it on a day. So consider that. That could be a great way to get a piece of, the experience.
Mm-hmm. And, if you are going to do that, like especially if you do it with people, what you can do is either, because if it's any trail that's like point to point, when you hike a section of it, you either have to double back, or when you get to the section, like when you're done, I know you've Ubered back to your car, like when you've been out on hikes before.
Yeah, I've done that. The Bruce Trail, we had to like hitchhike.
Or if you're with friends, have one person park at one end.
Yeah.
Right. And then you drive back, park, hike it, and then they drive you back to your car.
Yeah.
Right. It's sort of like if you're doing it with people.
Yeah.
That's another way you can do it as well.
That's fun.
I'm always a big fan of loops. I hate doubling back and the faffing around of trying to get back to the car. So anytime you can come up with a loop. Now, the downfall of a loop, of course, is you reach a point where you have to finish it. It's not like, we've gone far enough and let's just go back. Mm-hmm. But with a loop, at a certain point, you might as well just keep going because you got to keep going until you're done.
Yeah.
A lot of times there isn't an easy way to cut it short.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there is, like there's side trails you can cut across. But I have, and Catherine's been the victim of this. I hate doubling back and I hate walking the same section of trail twice. Mm-hmm. So, I like to make things into elaborate loops just so I don't have to do the same section of trail twice.
Or you could just be ignorant and not know that. You didn't, yeah. Anyway, I think you guys got the idea, though.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward, but we talked a lot about safety because it is a real thing. It's a big concern. Nobody ever plans to be search and rescued, but it's often because of hikers that it happens. So you've been warned.
But it is super awesome. So, don't be scared off of doing it.
Oh, yeah, totally. And, the one thing I did when you and I broke up and I no longer had a hiking partner, I got a Garmin InReach Explorer so I could go. It was backpacking. And then we got back together. So that was good. But anyway.
And you had your own
Winston in my pocket.
Yeah.
It's late.
Oh, you were saying? I'm waiting for you to finish what you were saying.
I forget.
Oh, okay. Well, so everybody, hopefully that gives you a few tips, pointers, that kind of thing to make hiking more accessible. Hiking can be its own thing, or it can be the leap into backpacking where you're,
It's amazing.
Camping multiple days.
I'm just going to say that I always feel... This is going to scare people from hiking. I always feel safer backpacking because, like you said earlier, everything's on your back.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like long hikes. I'm talking about like the ones in the mountains. I always feel much safer having it on my back. And that's when I think people are more apt to have your 10 essentials for sure. But don't underestimate that.
Yeah. Well, if you're backpacking, you have your 10 essentials because you just naturally carry all that stuff.
Yeah.
You don't backpack without a headlamp. You don't backpack without spare clothes and shelter, and you don't have a tarp. You have a tent.
Yeah.
And you have a sleeping bag and a sleeping pad, and you have food,
Mm-hmm.
and water filtration. Like, that's just backpacking gear, So what we're talking about with the 10 essentials is like the mini versions that can fit in like a little bag that you can just take with you anywhere. Throw it in a little backpack with some snacks, and you're good to go. And then you come home safe.
There you go.
So, yeah, hope you learned something. Comments, send us messages,
Questions,
interactive stuffs. How
do
all
us a
this-
favor. Share this podcast.
Yeah.
Promote it. We don't really do it for money. We do it just because we love it, and we really get a kick out of the people we meet along the way.
Yeah.
But to help us grow it, we always appreciate when people share it.
Yeah. So until next time, work hard.
Play dirty.